just as an example, look around you and think of anything that is plastic, that would be gone without the benzene ring. But when benzene is on its own, it's known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So because there are 20 of these shapes, these benzene-like shapes, again, different formula, but same shape on the exterior of this cage, they thought this molecule would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. And instead of being toxic, the test subject that they gave it to, in this case, Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control groups.
I'm having the greatest thought, which is, what if it's a blessing from God? You know, that all of a sudden, all these chemical things that we can't pronounce might no longer be available. Just throwing it out as a possibility of, that pineal gland decalcifying, reactivating. And, wouldn't it be nice maybe if there were fewer choices of things that are harmful?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Valuable information. Our world's twisting, and everywhere we look, there's different types of disruptions to life. Our life costs are going to increase tremendously, and along with that comes different choices in life. So as we march forward from this time, even though it's April, no pun intended, Chris Burris, Patty Gurry with me today. C60 EVO ESS 60. We want to talk about recovery. I wish the world would recover from this madness that we're in. But we're going to talk about your body and keeping yourself optimally running during this time, because if you ever in your entire life needed to be more aware, heightened senses, body at full functionality to make choices at a moment's notice on a dime and pivot, this is it right now. Things are just completely scattering across the planet. I'm saying it's because of the increasing vibrational frequency that can't hold state in our old type of financial world, governmental world. So we're splitting, the worlds are splitting literally by vibrational frequency. So harnessing that and being able to understand those changes and integrate them into your choices in life, who better to explain it and talk about this? So remember, it's mind, body, spirit. Moving through these changes, it's definitely going to be all three again. So thank you for joining me. I'm over in Taiwan right now, currently. So anybody out there was in Taipei last week, all week. And then I'm down near Kaohsiung, which is the southern end of I got the coconut trees out the front, rice fields out the back here. I'm in a farming and agricultural district out where it's far outside the normal large city. It's about as far remote you can get just at the base before going up into the higher elevations here. So I'm telling you where I'm at because things are a little different than what it appears on the news. So I'll leave it at that, but everything's solid, very safe out here. Again, be very discerning with what you hear on the news, and also be very discerning on how you treat your body during this time. So I digress. Chris, Patty, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So what did you put in your suitcase that was important that you didn't want to leave without?
Oh, let me show here. Yeah, I had the, remember, we were trying to transit the airport when the TSA was at the ultimate shutdown. And this saved my life because any liquids, they were just being real rough. Anything that even was barely close to anything being over, they're like, wow, we don't have a pay. Take it or get to the back of the line and come back through one more time. We're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We kept hearing about this in Chicago when we were flying out. So I brought these, grabbed a handful, put them in my travel, and there was zero problem with it because it was a capsule. You can hear steak in there. Travel like that, the greatest thing since sliced bread, because you can get your capsule and take it with you. But having these with me, I had no problem. So yeah, thanks. I'm super glad you developed this product instead of having just liquids, because take something through we had 18-hour flight and layover, or not layover, but waiting in the airport. And then anyway, great journey. It was one for the record books. I'll say that. It was such a different experience with all those disruptions.
Great way to travel. When you take your remedy with you and you don't have to worry about them pulling it out of your suitcase, the capsules are definitely our travel remedy. And that's half the reason. The other reason is some people don't like just to take a spoonful of oil, which is so easy and so direct. But, if you do this, it's it's just as good once it gets in your system. And that's the point, is that you want to get the ESS60 in your system to boost everything, your energy, your mental focus, but traveling, what a great thing to take with you.
As we were waiting, I had to gobble down a handful because it's whizzed out,
I think generally people are more angry. Like the public adds to that energy and then everybody gets wound up. So maybe it's not just TSA, but it's everyone at the airport. They're going to miss their flight. They're stressed. But also the last 8 or 10 years have been an absolute test on humans' mental focus and patience. And that's the one thing that we rave about with this product is you take it in the morning, you got patience and energy, mostly, a lot more than normal without taking the remedy in the morning. But if I take it at night, I am wound because it does give you a lot of energy. So great for travel. And Chris is going to explain why, because he's in a lab coat for a reason. We let him out to come out and play and be on the shows, and then he goes back in the lab.
Get back in the cage.
Yeah, get to work.
The blast-proof doors, get back in.
So what we'll talk about today is kind of COVID, Lyme, really kind of vaccine leftover. And this isn't about the cure for these. This is about how our product might be supporting the backside of these things, right? Long COVID, Lyme disease can end up being a chronic disease, and how our molecule might be able to support that, right? So really excited to jump in here. When you're thinking about COVID or Lyme, it's like a triad of biological hijacking, which is oxidation and inflammation, and then ultimately mitochondrial dysfunction. You're looking at, specifically in the case of Lyme, and these are kind of the subtler things that happen in long COVID, is you still got these remnants of it, whether it's remnants from the vaccine or from the actual a virus. You're getting these remnants, and so your body's still kind of in alert mode, and it's creating the cytokine storm. If you think back to when COVID was at its peak, the thing that was causing most of the problems was actually our own natural defense system, the cytokine storm that would happen as your body's trying to fight off that virus. We're talking about, persistent joint and neuroinflammation, and this cytokine storm kind of bleeds over into oxidative stress, where we're seeing additional reactive oxygen species. We'll be talking about those. We're seeing glutathione depletion. This glutathione is one of your super antioxidants, and it's a master shield, as it's kind of mentioned here. And ultimately that bleeds over into your mitochondrial dysfunction. One of the challenges is, specifically with Lyme, is it's a manganese thief. Manganese is one of the vitamins and minerals that your mitochondria need in order to produce energy, in order to produce that ATP. So now, not only do you have this kind of inflammation, this additional oxidative stress, and these component theft, you're no longer producing ATP at this rate. Like, one of the biggest symptoms of long COVID, in fact, the real way you have it, is this kind of sense of lethargy that happens over time. And we do believe that the ESS60 molecule can have some positive impact on your body's ability to manage each of these situations.
Chris, can I stop you there? Can I please stop you for a second? Now, can you explain the mechanism from the tick bite, like how that goes in and what's affected, because anybody who's not familiar, that Lyme, that's directly tick bite related. And we're coming into the seasonality now when you're going to get out, you're going to go hiking more. You're going to be out in the forest more. You're going to be picnicking, going off to the parks, walks with dogs, with kids, with your spouse, other ones, whatever. It's generally this time where we've been cooped up for a whole winter. You're just bounding to get out and get into nature again, because it's so soothing. And especially in today's world, a lot of people just want to ditch that computer screen and get back into natural environments where you can get that balancing. Nature's always the healer. So, can you walk through that a little bit about, this tick-borne illness?
Yeah. So in Lyme disease, as you mentioned, tick-borne illness there's a whole collection of vector-borne diseases. Vector really meaning that it's delivered by some instrument. In this case, it's a tick. Malaria would be the mosquito. There's a lot of these vector-borne diseases, and I recently had a conversation with a Lyme expert, and they were talking about there's so many additional diseases that can come with it, whether they're viruses or bacterias, that can come with a Lyme disease, right? With a vector-borne disease that's coming off of a tick. And yeah, you get a tick bite, just like the way you would get malaria from a mosquito bite. I think people are a little bit more familiar with that. Same thing with the tick. You get this Lyme disease. It's a bacteria. It's a very resilient bacteria, and you actually have to address it typically with not one, not two, but three different antibiotics. And then you also need to have something that will wipe away the biofilm, because they'll actually protect themselves in little cocoons that won't allow those antibiotics to get into it. So it's really, really a very resilient bacteria. And so it tends to kind of linger, and you may have Lyme disease. In fact, they kind of think that if you've ever had Lyme disease, you probably still have it resident. It may not have just taken hold. It may just be lying dormant. And so you might experience this stress, and that kind of might reactivate the symptoms that are coming off of the Lyme disease. Or you might just have stress in your life and kind of have this come back. And that's when you start getting this chronic inflammation, this ongoing oxidative stress, and ultimately dysfunctional mitochondria. And that is the downstream piece, and supporting your body's ability to manage those downstream pieces that we really think ESS60 excels. Right. So what is ESS60? Right. So it's this beautiful molecule. There is actually a book called The Most Beautiful Molecule, which is entirely about this ESS60 molecule. It was discovered in 1985 by three scientists. That's Smalley, Curl, and Kroto. Those three scientists went on to win the Nobel Prize in 1996 for the discovery of this, excuse me, of this molecule. Our lab actually started producing it in 1991, a full 5 years before they were awarded the Nobel Prize. We're really proud. We are the oldest and longest manufacturer of this ESS60 molecule on the planet. And, you know, I'm not a braggadocious person. This is as braggadocious as I will get. It's not unreasonable to suggest that because our lab was delivering commercial quantities of this ESS60 molecule to research institutions around the world, and scientists could actually get their hands on it, run experiments with it, understand the value of the molecule, is part of the reason that these three scientists ultimately won the Nobel Prize. Now, the molecule is amazing. Part of the reason they won the Nobel Prize is this molecule performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. These are all things we typically don't associate with health. And actually, the story gets a little worse as we're kind of thinking about this in the health space first. And that is this shape right here, front and center on the ESS60 molecule, is the same shape, not the same formula, but the same shape as the ESS60 molecule. And there are 20 of them. Now, benzene is very important for modern society. We don't have modern society without it. Just as an example, look around you and think of anything that is plastic. That would be gone without the benzene ring. But when benzene is on its own, it's known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So because there are 20 of these shapes, these benzene-like shapes, again, different formula, but same shape on the exterior of this cage, they thought this molecule would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. And instead of being toxic, the test subject that they gave it to, in this case, Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So here are some details of that original study, BATI study. Really happy to share that our company, our lab, provided the material. Our lab is mentioned in that original study. There were three groups in that study. One group was given water. That's a control group. Another group was given olive oil. That's a semi-control group. And then the group given ESS60 dissolved in olive oil is the really phenomenal result. I like to point out, so a typical Wistar rat lives out to about 32 months. And that's exactly what happened in the control group, right? These are just given water and they lived out to 32 months. The olive oil rats lived out to 38 months. So that's an 18% extension of life in these Wistar rats. So I really believe whatever olive oil you're consuming on a regular basis, probably should be consuming more. I love what Dr. Gundry says, kind of well-respected scientist who has an olive oil product on the market. And he says the purpose of food is to get more olive oil into your mouth. I agree with that. You probably should be consuming more, but that's only an 18% extension of life in these Wistar rats. With the ESS60 molecule, their life extended out to 62 months. Again, a full 90% extension of life. We like to think about, why did these rats live longer? And this will also have parallels with why we think this helps support your body as it's addressing kind of the long downstream problems that are associated with these diseases that we've mentioned. The first place that we landed, our most consistent testimonial, is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And if you think about it, sleep is good for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. We all know that if we get a great night's sleep, we feel better, but physiologically, we are actually better. There are physiological impacts of not getting sleep. We did a sleep study. This is kind of an ad hoc study. It's a small cohort, but what we did is we asked sleep questions, a survey, things like sleep. How do you rate your sleep? How easily was it to fall asleep? How restless were you? And then we collected that data for 10 days. That's the blue bar, 10 days prior to them trying the product, 10 days while they were on the product, 10 days when they were off the product, back off the product, and then 10 days back on the product. This is the average of the data, and you can see reported improvements in sleep for these participants for this particular study. More importantly, on an individual by individual basis, every single one of the participants reported improvements in sleep while they were taking the product. So sleep is this first place that we landed. Next, I want to talk about oxidation and inflammation. We do have to be very careful when we talk about these. We'll start with oxidation. There is an ad hoc study out on the web showing our product to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C, right? A very well-known, obviously, antioxidant. And there's peer-reviewed published research showing it to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So we put a big old check. I'm in Texas, so we put a big old check mark next to oxidation. When it comes to inflammation, we have to be really careful. The FDA equates conversations of inflammation with the diseases of inflammation. And those are also the diseases of aging. So arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease. We are not making that claim. There is so much research that we would need to do. In fact, very expensive research we would need to do in order to make those types of claims, but still important nonetheless. And then finally, with the BOSS theory, this stands for buffering oxidative stress system. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the foundational benefit, how this molecule supports your natural systems, your body's natural system, to manage those downstream effects. So the buffering oxidative stress system, the foundation of this principle is that from peer-reviewed published research, we know the ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s that this molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So here's how that looks in this biological system. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for your blood cells, which actually have 0, and your brain and neurons, which have 2 million. It is amazing how much energy our nervous system uses relative to our other systems. Like any power source, right? Mitochondria is the power source. There is a negative byproduct. You think about your car going down the road, there's exhaust. You think about a power plant, there's a smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, you have reactive oxygen species. The way I picture these are like little bumper cars, where if they're left to their own devices, they run around your body, and everything they smack into, they cause oxidative stress, oxidative damage, inflammation, all these things that we're talking about as downstream impacts, which sounds horrible, and it is, but like so many biological systems in our body, there is a mechanism to manage those reactive oxygen species. In the case of your mitochondria, it's glutathione and melatonin. I do like to pause here, because our most consistent testimonial involves sleep, and melatonin is the sleep hormone. So it's all fitting together really well. So you can see here in healthy mitochondria, the reactive oxygen species are these beautiful, tranquil blue colors because they've been bonded with the glutathione and with the melatonin. So they're not going to run around and do any damage. But what happens when you stress mitochondria? If there's anything that's true about mitochondria, when you are dealing with something, you have stressed mitochondria. If you're dealing with Lyme or COVID or whatever it is, you're having stressed mitochondria. And that's when they start producing more reactive oxygen species than can be managed internally. So you can actually see here, there's some of these very tranquil reactive oxygen species because they're bonded with glutathione and the available melatonin. But when it's producing more, that's when they act like little bumper cars and run around, and everything they smack into, they cause oxidative stress and oxidative damage. And that is where this ESS60 molecule comes in. So again, peer-reviewed published research, it's in this mitochondria. And also from way back in the 90s, it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of the cage. And so we believe it holds on to those reactive oxygen species. So they can't run around like little bumper cars. And then when that particular mitochondria replenishes the glutathione or replenishes the melatonin, then it can manage those reactive oxygen species properly. And that's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. And fundamentally, to kind of summarize all this, we believe we're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And because mitochondria are in every cell in your body, if you're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you should have systemic benefits. You should have what we have, which are head-to-toe testimonials. Now, to bring this back to our topic today, right? COVID, Lyme, triad of biological hijacking. When it comes to inflammation, I mean, really, we can start with oxidative stress. We just talked about how this ESS60 molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles, which manages this, helps the body manage this oxidative stress. Same thing here, dampening that cytokine storm and ultimately supporting your mitochondria. To break this down a little bit more, Borrelia is the Lyme disease, the actual bacteria that is the Lyme disease. It's on high alert. You're having the cytokine storm. ESS60 brings your body back into balance. That oxidative stress, same thing here. You've got weaponized reactive oxygen species. They're like biological bleach, if you want to call them that. And the collateral damage is this reduction in glutathione. If you have that reduction in glutathione, then you really do want to have the ESS60 molecule there to manage those reactive oxygen species, to give that buffer. And we've talked about that. And then, of course, in the mitochondria, membrane stabilizer, that free radical sponge really helps support your natural body's ability to manage the stress that can exist in mitochondria. And I'll wrap this up. People are like, oh, what might I experience on this product? We think of it as having really good parallels with our most consistent testimonial, which is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. So month 1 is really focus and energy. And I lean on one particular testimonial here. We got some product to an influencer. She took the product in the morning. She recorded her video that night. And she pointed out in that video that she didn't finish her cup of coffee that day. Now, if you're a coffee drinker, that's a big deal. I will share, I used to be a 2 to 3 day a cup of coffee per day person. Now I'm really down to 1, maybe half of 1. It's really part of my actual coffee routine, which is also when I take my C60 Evo. So I'm actually a little nervous about changing my coffee routine. But yeah, I'm down to 1 or half a cup a day. And then there are some potential weight loss benefits. If you replace, it's well documented that if you replace saturated fats with something like an olive oil, there will be weight loss benefits. Month 2, we're looking at sleep. I really do believe that sleep is starting to happen in month 1. But everybody gets a little bit more or less sleep every day. And so to track it back, oh, I started taking C60 Evo and now my sleep is better. It can take a while for you to notice that. The testimonial I lean on here is my business coach shared that for 50 years, he needed an alarm clock in order to wake up. When he started taking this formula, he wakes up before the alarm clock. Now, I like to point out he's a business coach. So he has late night dinners, late night mixers. None of that matters unless he doesn't get the product for about 10 days. After 10 days, he starts to need the alarm clock again to wake up. And I have certainly parallels with that. And then finally, month 3, when you think about reducing the negative impact of stress mitochondria, which is systemic, we start getting testimonials that we just can't share yet, right? The FDA doesn't allow us to share these powerful testimonials. We have to do the research. We have to do more research in order to be able to share these. I will share, my father-in-law was walking with a cane at about the 3-month mark. He stopped using the cane and actually started walking a lot farther. Of course, there's going to be weight loss benefits in that scenario. And so you start to see those systemic benefits that kind of land in month 3. And that really kind of wrapped up my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, I do. Could you go back to the Wistar rat study? Because I'd actually read the physical paper, because in your website, there is a link to that paper directly.
Yes.
And it's written in words, and they have some, a little bit more difficult if you're not into that whole science arena, like how you differentiate those charts and different, test groups and that sort of thing. But this is, because I could unequivocally say 18% improvement in something would be, gargantuan. People would be jumping at that. Can you imagine if you could save 18% of time for doing something? If you could save 5%. Or feel 5% to 18%, that's and then 62 months, that's nearly a double. If you think about if people live to be 200 years old, would that be something that, I start to take this in a little wider view of, the graphics were done really well here to explain a written paper, to pull it out into something you can actually see that makes sense for everybody to look at the actual difference in that. It's not, a micro difference. This is a substantial something that's orders of magnitude, looking at this going, wow, that is so different than when you read the paper, you get the idea of, it improves in it. But when you look at it in this graph here, this chart that you created, it really hits you like, wow, that is incredible in terms of what it did for that study compared to just reading the written paragraphs on, well, it extended this, it did that, written word compared to the visuals, very different.
Well, yeah, and I think this graph does a really good job, and you're right, pointing out how like 90% extension of life. All right, so it's just hard for us to comprehend, right? Because you don't go to GNC, you don't go to your physician, and they say, hey, if you want to extend your life by X%, then you can just take this, or you can have this protocol, or you can do whatever. No, that doesn't happen. So when you hear something like a 90% extension of life, it really is valuable to see this kind of graphic showing you what does that really mean in the case of humans, right? So these are Wistar rats, and they're very particular lab animals. Not saying this applies to humans. If it were to apply to humans, right, a 90% extension of life would mean that the average human would live out to 152. And if you're like me, when I hear 152, my brain immediately goes to, oh, that's the oldest human. And no, that's the average. There's a bell curve around that 152. So people living much longer. And, that is one of the reasons we will probably never do a longevity study on humans, because that study goes out to 100, potentially goes out to 152.
Again, it all boils down to sleep. Can you get more sleep? Because I have noticed more people talking about, it seems that something is just off, and they kind of describe it as just an electric feeling in the air, just overall in terms of changes that we're seeing across the planet and just how people are dealing with every day. You mentioned, Patty, over the last 5-7 years, it just seems that this schism is the way I'm going to use it, this splitting into a higher vibratory field. I think that's what people are picking up on. And with that, you're either getting better sleep or you're getting disrupted sleep. Like, people are trying to readjust the field. You got to realize magnetically, when you're born into a magnetic field that your state is into, because you were born into that. Now, if that magnetic field's changing here or there, it's going to disrupt a lot of things that biologically are trying to attune to a new field, frequency, whatever the way you like to term that. But having something that can help you tune in to that ever-changing morphic field, that's something that's definitely not talked about enough, I should say. And I'm starting to look at it as like, why do older people always feel that the world has changed so much by the time they're 80 or 90? Well, if you're getting into sort of these subtle changes energetically, they're really not fitting into the frequency field that has morphed and changed over nearly a century. And that's why they feel completely disconnected at the end of the life, because it's changing in an ever moving direction. Nothing stays static. But this time, I really believe it's a flash change. It's changing much faster than, say, my grandparents and my great-great-grandparents. We're into a massive change right now. So again, having something that can help us roll with the changes for better. I like that old REO Speedwagon song, if anybody remembers that. And yeah, I got to keep rolling and keep on rolling, right, with the changes.
Well, I think one of the biggest infractions on our health has been the 5G and 6G towers. That's going to change our energy. And also the smart meters on the sides of their house, they just stick them on without our permission. So those are changing the energy field for people and really testing us. So, we have that to deal with, the fluoride in the water, the crap in the food, which was what I was really looking at last month with presentations, and ESS 60 to the rescue. I mean, the only thing we can do is work on ourselves from the inside out. And what an easy thing, to be able to take a spoonful of oil in the morning to boost your energy, but also your immunity. We have been proven, this product has been proven to be 125% stronger than vitamin C as an antioxidant. And all you need to do is take a teaspoon in the morning, like once a day. Tablespoon's better if you can really want to be energized and get a lot done and stay up late. Or if you have like a race or a big hike, really good to do preventative. To take a shot of it and double up, maybe you'll have probably double the energy, and it'll be noticeable. A lot of people definitely write us and say, wow, I'm not imagining it. I definitely have more energy, flexibility, and endurance overall. So, like you over there across the world, David, traveling, nothing better than getting your energy boosted so you can handle the time zone extremes and keep on traveling.
Yeah, I would say that the time change being 12 hours, even though I'm still trying to work and get everything, getting up at 4:30 to get ready to be on here, wasn't as difficult as getting up at 4:30 if you'd already stabilized into it for months and months and months or years, and then you get up at that early. So to jump time zones, depending on what you're doing, can also be easier, but it does help, to have something with you that will keep your sleep more regulated. All right. That's the big thing is, travelers are always looking for something that can help them. Now, the big things, Chris, could I ask you the difference between taking melatonin to try to, get some sleep or keep you in that sleep state versus getting easily woken up while you're on these different time zones compared to C60 Evo? What do you think about trying to explain that mechanism? Thank you for the website. That's me there, C60 Evo.
Yeah, .com/adapt 2030.
Adapt 2030. Yeah, I'll take 15% off the order. I'm still sold on this just from the traveling aspect. And again, I might digress back to C60 Evo versus melatonin to try to get over some of these, sleep disruptions, I guess, either, in your daily life, if you're trying to get a quick wink or, stay asleep the whole night. That's another thing. Staying asleep the whole night is more and more and more difficult, along with traveling too, because this overlaps, in so many ways and forms.
Yeah, melatonin is right. It's a hormone. It's an antioxidant. It really kind of helps balance our circadian rhythm. But melatonin, and this is well written by Dr. Matthew Walker in his book Why We Sleep. It is technically the firing gun that's telling our physiology that we need to get ready to go to sleep. So it has a couple of challenges, right? One of them is dosing. If you take too much or if you take it at the wrong time, too late. You can imagine if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and the firing gun telling your physiology to get ready to go to sleep is going off, that is not what's supposed to be happening. What's supposed to be happening, you're supposed to be asleep and you're supposed to stay asleep. So you have to be very careful. If you take too much melatonin, it certainly can cause grogginess. If you mistime it, it can cause grogginess. And it is very different than our product because our most consistent testimonial, I mean, if I just said our most consistent testimonial is you take the product in the morning and you sleep better at night. Like just that alone. But that's not our most consistent testimonial. It actually adds this little caveat, which is you have focus and energy during the day because of this product. And then you also sleep better at night. That's pretty amazing. I'm not aware of anything that you can take in the morning and have a positive impact on sleep Certainly, you could get exercise. Exercise in the morning would have a positive impact on sleep. You could get some exposure to the sun, and that would get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun. That would help you sleep at night. But to take something and have a positive impact on sleep, and if you go back to that boss theory, here's fundamentally what I think is going on. Right? It's a little bit of a misrepresentation, but sleep has all of these things that it needs to do. Right? You've got to clear out your mitochondria. You've got to work on emotional repair. You got to store memories. You got to physically repair the body, your muscles, and all aspects of your body. And if that first thing, right, like working on the mitochondria, is already got a checkbox to it, your body can go to the next thing in the list. In fact, we had an interview last week talking about vivid dreams. We believe that's coming because that first thing on the checklist is taken care of, so your body can move on to taking care of that emotional, managing emotions through sleep, through dreams. And so, yeah, that's the kind of difference between melatonin and the ESS60 molecule.
Now, Patty, you were just about to say something, and I'd cut you off. Excuse me for doing that. Any thought to follow up?
Yeah, I'm looking at your landing page and your nice photo.
It's
And
looking so good. Hey, let me look.
looking good. I did want to suggest that the reason we have these products on top is a lot of people say, where do I start? You've got a store full of all kinds of stuff. We have 3 flavors of oil, but the one that we recommend most, because it's been used in the peer-reviewed studies, is the C60 Evo Organic Olive Oil. And it's only 2 ingredients. It is olive oil from a farm in Tunisia, cold pressed, extra virgin, organic olive oil. So it's really as good as it gets. Very peppery flavor. You can tell it's the good stuff. And the ESS60, which can be found in nature, but not enough of it. So my partners created a machine in the early 90s to a reactor, big, huge metal Star Wars machine that creates the ESS60 molecule at the heat of the sun. And that's all that's in this product that is getting rave reviews around the world. So you're in Taipei last week, and we ship everywhere. I think Greece is the only place we can't ship olive oil, but we can ship the body creams, the facial serums, avocado oil, MCT, but not olive oil to olive countries, which is kind of limiting. But I think there's only 2 countries. Brazil is the other one. Short of that, we ship everywhere and 5 days a week. And we are now officially all glass bottles, which we're very proud of, for our edible oils. So the bottles are a lot heavier. They're beautiful cobalt blue, but the products have always been exceptional and delivered perfectly. But this is just one more upgrade. Plus our facial serum, which you can see listed there as, when people say, what should I start with? It's the starter set. We have 4-ounce or 8-ounce collection sets, but you can get one of each, and it's called the starter set, and it is what people love to begin with. We have special deals. If you get one, you get 15% off a set, and if you get 6 sets, you get 20% off, and then there's another discount if you get 3 sets. And we're doing those specials on a lot of things, but the best thing you can do is sign up for a monthly subscription to save 20% every month, no matter what other discounts you get. And if you choose not to continue, all you have to do is drop us an email. Our customer service is great. They don't even ask questions unless you want to talk about it, but we don't hold you to a subscription. It just helps you save money. So this is our, like I said, top item, or just the olive oil if you want to go small and just give it a try. But a lot of people come back quickly and reorder a lot more, or bigger bottles. We go up to 32-ounce size, the size of my head, 4-ounce, 8-ounce, 16, and 32-ounce. And again, this is our special deals on the olive oil if you just want to do it without the facial serum. I do want to say that as many men as women love our facial serums. And the guys at the lab, when I first brought it to their attention, they're like, yeah, we're not really up for doing face stuff. And of course, then they, started using it. Their wives were saying, "Oh my God, honey, you look so much better." And then a year later, they were playing around with a peptide that has 30 years of exceptional abilities. And now we have a 2-part facial serum as well called the C60 Evo Youth Renew Duo. And the reason we have the 2-part serum is because we didn't want to put it together in a bottle with emulsifiers and chemicals. So it's this lovely peptide blue formula that you blend fresh in your palm with the oil, and you activate it fresh, put it on your face, and you'll see some nice compliments coming in. So here's our olive oil collection, and the 3 organic oils, which is the MCT coconut, great in coffee, the avocado oil, wonderful on avocado toast, or better yet, on a spoon so you don't have to lick the plate, and the olive oil, which we take all different ways. Chris takes it in a beaker at the lab. I take it on a tablespoon every morning. And some people take it straight out of the bottle, but however you take it, you're going to probably like the benefits. So that's our sampler set on the right. We do a 2-ounce sampler, which is small bottles, so you can try all 3, or a 4-ounce or an 8-ounce sampler set. And you save money there, 15% on any sets. And then if you sign up for a monthly, you get 20% off that. And if you use David's code, there's another 15. It's not 15%, it's $15 off at checkout. So
Yeah, that code is ADAPT2030 for anybody who wants to jump in there. ADAPT2030. APT2030 is the code you want to use.
Yeah, I mean, use all the discounts. We want people to be able to get in where they can afford it and really enjoy the benefits. So here you are across the world with very careful packing, and you took our products with you. I'm flattered. You even took the facial serum, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, sure did, because they're, out here in Asia, well, I mean, everywhere in the world, I'm just going to say Asia, but out here they take facial beauty and longevity of look to another level. And that's the whole thing. It's like, we bring it out. We want to tell you, when we're trying to, all this, best things in sliced bread, so to bring and introduce this out here into Asia at a more substantial level where I can, go with that and show it around as well. It's just, there's nothing like it out here. There's a lot of different, things that you can put on for the moisturizers and this, that, and the other. And it's very much on the UV spectrum out here where nobody, if you know anything about Asian culture, a lot of the women specifically don't really like to go in the sun and get all suntanned and that sort of thing, because they're, it's just part of the culture. So anything that is less, let's say, destructive chemically for the face that will give you a greater outcome, that is a winner for sure. And that would go with any culture you go across the planet. Specifically, I would say more on Patty, you could attest better than me because I'm not a female. I don't identify as one. I identify as a male.
Thank
But
God.
that whole genre of beauty and health seems to gravitate a lot more toward women than it does for men. Again, when you start to look and you turn over some of these bottles, like the amount of ingredients, like you were talking about, the emulsifiers, it's just as bad in beauty and facial product as it is in the foods that we go in the supermarket and turn over. It's like 70 ingredients. You're like, dude, when I was a kid, there were like 5. Same with the bottles, when you turn them over, it's like half the bottle is just all these ingredients that you're like, really? I thought it was just, for me, looking at say like, you need that many to make that thing squeeze out. Come on now. It's getting like way over the top here where it's almost becoming too noticeable. So less is more.
Less is more, but natural is best. We also have the aromatherapy element to our products. They just smell divine. We have a body cream that was sold out for the last 3 months. Just got it back in this week. It's called the C60 Evo Rich Body Cream with tangerine, and it is luscious. Now, I don't want to leave out the pets because animals seem to really, really respond well because they don't fake it, they don't lie. And when you've got a lethargic or I got to be careful of the words, a cat or dog that doesn't move well and their joints are stiff, you give them some of our oil. And what it is the #1 selling olive oil. And the dog formula has a little bit of bacon essence. The cat formula has a little bit of salmon essence. And so if you're going to get it for yourself, you may as well get some for your dog. But it just really helps bone and joint health. And I find that when I remember and I'm taking my spoonful of oil, if I swish it through my teeth, another great benefit is I noticed that my gums have been coming back down rather than receding. I can't say it's going to work for other people, might just be a coincidence. And whatever it is you decide to get, do remember to do the specials because you will save money. The monthly subscription, no obligation, but it'll save you 20% quickly. And then if you do the group, with more products, you're going to save money there also. And for dessert, use David's code at checkout for another $15 off. You're going to be killing it with the price. And you're going to, within a few days, say, whoa, great investment, most likely.
Yeah, so let me end out with one thought here. Talking about disruptions out of the Middle East, approximately 13 to 15% of all generic drugs manufactured on the planet are no longer going to be manufactured, which just took an enormous amount of supply off the market there. So having something that could, again, I'm going to choose my words carefully, use as an adjuvant or, added into your daily routine to try to swing that favor in your direction in case some of these are not available any longer or greatly disrupted, the price is just tremendously increased because I can't see how you take that much of a supply off in one time and not create some sort of either shortage scenario or price spike from that. So, just with that generality in hand of generics, any words on that? Any thoughts, or is that too deep to go?
I'm having the greatest thought, which is, what if it's a blessing from God? That all of a sudden, all these chemical things that we can't pronounce might no longer be available. Just throwing it out as a possibility of, that pineal gland decalcifying, reactivating. And, wouldn't it be nice maybe if there were fewer choices of things that are harmful? I think the word is getting out. And I think that our health systems are definitely evolving. And I'd like to say that we are part of it at C60 Evo.
All right, check it out, c60evo.com. Use that code ADAPT2030 at checkout. Hope you got something out of our talk. Things are just changing so radically right now. Some say it's a plan to bring us to the end of the decade and these achievable goals. Others say it's just organic, that things are rising. Don't really care which way it is or what it is. All that's assured is change in life is here. And a lot of things that were available before are not going to be. So use every advantage to, make sure that your life stays incredibly bountiful and you're able to think, sleep, and have energy moving through these changes. So please leave your comments below in the comment box. I try to read those every month in order to generate questions, see if we can get something to stump Chris, maybe, maybe not. But Patty, you too, there's always some comments in there, talking about your glamour and wow, look at the energy and that sort of thing. So I do read every single comment that comes through on the videos. Take a little note sheet and try to get ready for the next talk. So until next time, bye for now.
Thank you.